Hello, everybody. A very good afternoon from sunny Dussen in the Netherlands. Thank you for joining our ShipIT 365 partner training for Q2. My name is Nicholas. With me on the call is Ruben Schuster, and Ruben will be taking you through today's call in just a moment. I have a bit of housekeeping. First of all, if you have any questions, please submit them in the questions tab. We will collect them and answer them after the session. So we'll handle them at the end. You'll all be sent a recording of today's session after we close. And please be so kind to share your feedback through the brief questionnaire you'll see after this one closes. Just a reminder for today's sessions that we still have to go. We have ShipIT starting in just a few seconds. But at 3:30 this afternoon, we also have a session on one of our new offerings, Approve It 365, a new app for Business Central where you can have customers sign and store sales quotes into BC. Through an integration we developed with DocuSign. So if you want to register for this one, if you have an hour to spare later this afternoon, go to idyn.nl/news. With that being said, I will change the presenter to Ruben. And Ruben, when you are ready, you can take it away.
Thank you, Nicholas.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thank you all for joining my session today. I will talk you through ShipIT 365, our solution that enables you to send out transportation orders to the different carriers that could exist and print out labels for your packages. Today's topics, I'll first explain which providers we use to enable you to get your transportation orders to the right carriers. The heart of our solution is the transportation order. So I will, of course, talk you through that. Then we have some advanced customs handlings. Partly because of Brexit, we have added a couple of features that enables you to do to specify in more detail which packages you have and also what's in it. Then we have freight cost and the carrier select option. As one of the last topics, I want to talk you through the initial configuration that you have to do to be able to start using ShipIT. And then I just want to have give you some considerations for working with packages and on which level you define them, basically. And that should conclude today's session. So, as being said, ShipIT offers an integration with carriers, and we are not making direct integrations with specific carriers, but for that we use existing platforms. And for that we have 3 companies that do that for us. One is Nshift, and that has 2 products, being Transmart or Delivery Hub. We have SendCloud, and in the US, or mainly focusing on the US nowadays, and this is quite new, we also have EasyPost available. Delivery Hub is typically used in the Nordics and in Germany. SendCloud is a more lightweight solution where it's more about packages and it's maybe more consumer oriented. And Transmart is the de facto standard in Europe. We have always had an integration with Transmart, but we recently added the other possibilities. To come back on EasyPost, EasyPost is mainly used for the USA market and has specific North American carriers like US Postal Service, for instance. But it also deals, for instance, with the consumer tax and state taxes in the US market. So could be interested if you're also serving that region. This is, by the way, is mainly the market is mainly focusing on where you're shipping from, not necessarily where you're shipping to, because typically every carrier can ship abroad. So it's mostly where your own warehouses sit that determines which integration you use. So one of the first choices you have to make when you install ShipIT 365 or start using it is which provider you want to use. And then typically you create an account with that provider and you set up the integration in the ShipIT providers list. This list is available directly from the menu, but you can also reach it through the ShipIT setup card and then select it. As you can see, theoretically, it's possible to enable multiple providers. For instance, when you do both, have an office in the US and you have an office in somewhere in Europe, you could both enable Transmart and also Delivery Hub. But typically, of course, you would choose one provider because, of course, there's also costs related to that. And then you set up the integration. So here you see an example of the Transmart setup. Here you set up the account information. So you first create your account with Transmart, then you set up your credentials here and you enable the service. Once you enable the service, it will automatically get the master data as it is configured in the Transmart portal, and then it retrieves the necessary data like package types and email types and cost centers that you set up on that portal. Obviously, each provider has small differences in the setup. For instance, the unit of measure for weight or volumes can be different. Transmart uses kilograms, Delivery Hub uses grams, and EasyPost, as it focuses on the US market, uses LBS. So that's also why we have conversion factors for if your weights on the items, for instance, or on sales lines are entered, registered in different unit of measures than you're using, then that specific provider or that platform is using. There can also be small differences in where the data originates from. For instance, package types in Delivery Hub are configured in the Transmart portal, but with Transmart, for instance, it's also possible to create package types directly in Business Central and then sync them back to the Transmart portal. So, of course, there can be small differences. Also wanted to show you the setup for SendCloud. So SendCloud does a different kind of authentication. And you have different settings for requesting labels, which label type printer you want to use. Also the weight conversion. So you can see there are small differences in setup and of course also in usage, but for every provider, the main flow is the same. We will create our transport orders, book them, and by booking them, the transportation order is forwarded to the provider's platform and is then updated by the carriers with additional information that flows back into Business Central. So as I said, the heart of the solution is the transport order that I will show in a minute. We have the transport order card. On them you can create and define your packages. Then you can book a transport order, and as I said, that will submit it to the provider's platform. You can periodically receive updates. You can synchronize it to see what the current status is. If there are issues, you can receive your track and trace info also by updating it. And then from the transport order, we also update the underlying source documents with track and trace information and even some insights in the statuses. Yeah, so let's first quickly go into the application, and then I will show you what the transport order looks like, and then also you get a better feeling of what it is and what it does. To have a good overview, an easy overview, we have created a ShipIT specific role center. And in the role center, you can go to the source documents for which you can create transport orders. You can, of course, go to the transport orders, see the archive one, and everything that is related to mappings and setup. We'll come back to that, of course. Here is also a list to that to the providers. So that's the print screen I just used. And then we have the ShipIT setup wizard and the ShipIT setup page that I will talk you through in a minute. But for now, let's just go to the transport order. And I will first use a already booked transport order. So what you can see here is that we created a transport order for a certain warehouse shipment. It is for Transmart. And we have selected the shipping method, the shipping agents, and the shipping agent service. And since this one is booked, we also got feedback from Transmart. So I here have a track and trace number for DHL. There's some status information and also the track and trace URL that I can see where the goods typically are. I know based on the status that it's still unhandled. So I just booked it. It's not being delivered or whatever. There will be status updates here periodically. And I can synchronize this transport order to get the latest status updates. But also there is a job queue running in the background that from time to time checks if there are status updates on the transport orders, so that I don't have to do it manually all the time. As long as the transport order has not been is not with the carrier, I can recall it, so cancel the order and then rebook it. And here on the right side, I can also see some details. So what is a transport order? Well, it's literally an order to transport goods from typically your own location to a customer, or in case of returns, it could be the other way around, of course, from a customer back to a warehouse, or even in between warehouses. So a transportation order has a pickup address, it has a ship to address, it can also have invoice address, there's configuration for that. And then I have some totals regarding the total weight or volume of a shipment, which of course can have an impact on the price, and the value that you are shipping, which can be required for instance, for insurances. There's some of the carriers offer insurance options, but it can also be important for cross-border shipping. Then we have, of course, when it's going to be picked up, so the pickup times, and when it's expected to be delivered. And by default, this is from our own internal settings, like the number of days that it takes to ship to a certain customer. So that's set up on the customer card or on the order. But under certain circumstances, we can also get feedback from the different carriers where they will say, if I pick it up on well, today, it will be shipped in 2 days, for instance. Then typically what you do is you create a transport order from either a sales order that you're about to ship, or you can base it on a posted document instead. That will give you the quantities, and that will also give you what is being shipped exactly. So there is a setting, and I will come back to that later, where the sales lines or the source document lines, because it can, next to sales line, can also be different type of documents. It will add those to the transport orders so that you can see what is being shipped and in which quantities. An important entity on the transportation order or at least from a carrier's perspective, is of course the number of packages that you're going to ship and how many you have of those, and what their weight or volume is might also determine the price. So this package entity is quite important in our solution. And of course, as you know, there is not such a thing in Standard Business Central as a package. So that has to be defined here. And again, I will come back to that one in detail on different scenarios that you can have on where and how you can create those packages to be able to book that transportation order. Let me quickly check if I've shown you everything that I would like. Yes, I did. All right. Then I will go back to the slides. So as I said, you can create transport orders from different source documents. And we have two different ways of using ShipIT 365. You can base your transport orders on unposted documents or on posted documents. So for a sales document, if a sales order, if you're using unposted documents, you create transport orders from a sales order. If you're basing it on posted documents, you create them from a sales shipment. You can create them from a sales return order for unposted documents, and even if you're using posted documents, the sales return order is also based on the unposted document, because with sales return orders, the transportation of the goods takes place before you're posting that, because then you're actually receiving the goods in your warehouse. So that's a slightly different scenario. This is also the only document type where something is received rather than shipped. A purchase return order is of course also a form of shipping, and the same goes for a transfer order. On service orders you can ship, and also on a posted service order. And then you can create a transport order from an unposted warehouse shipment. If you base them on posted, the underlying referenced document that is on the warehouse shipment will be used. So we will using sales shipments, return shipments, transfer shipments, etc., rather than the posted warehouse shipment as the basis for the transportation order. As I said, when we get status updates from the provider's platform, so for instance from Transmart, we also update the source documents that are linked to the transport order, so that you have the track and trace information available there. And for instance, this is what that looks like on a posted sales shipment. So here on the right side, I have my transport order. Of course, when you have a posted sales shipment, obviously you would have one transport order only, but on a sales order, for instance, there could also be multiple ones. What would happen then is that you will see that there are 3 transport orders. If you click on it, you will get the full list. And it will also show you the latest or highest status basically on the 3 transport orders to see what the status is. Here you will also see the track and trace information, but you also have it directly on the posted document. So that concludes everything for the providers and the transport orders. So let's talk a bit about more advanced scenarios. One is the advanced custom handling, and the other one is freight costs, or charging freight costs actually, and carrier selecting. And that helps you to get an insight in what the costs will be for shipping the goods. So let's focus first on advanced custom handling. As I said earlier, for example, because of the Brexit, we saw an increase in requirements to indicate more precisely what goods are being shipped and which goods are in which packages. So from customers, but also from certain carriers, that made it mandatory to specify detailed package content information. We got that as a requirement to be able to handle that. And again, as I said before, because packages are not an entity within Business Central, well, we have to set up those links manually on the transport orders, but again, some carriers requirements. So if you do cross-border shippings, it might be necessary to specify for each package what is actually in it. So what we have done is we have created a submodel on top of ShipIT that you can get for an additional price, and that enables the possibility to specify how the sales lines are divided over the several boxes that you're about to ship. Then you can link them. And then we, instead of just specifying on a shipment that I had 4 packages and a number of items, I specify for each package exactly what is in it. And that, of course, can be used for custom handlings as well, so that they know what kind of goods they have in the packages, but also what the total weight is and the specific values. Good to mention here as well is that we also have an integration with Tasklet. And as you might know, Tasklet is able to do scanning in warehouses, so that you can create your boxes, scan the goods that you have to ship inside boxes, and then there's an integration with ShipIT, so that when the transport order is created, we know exactly what is in, how many boxes we have and what is in it. So with or without this feature enabled, with Tasklet, we know exactly there's no additional effort in manually linking packages and package content or defining the number of boxes manually. So again, a small live demo here. What I want you to show is how you can add delivery note lines to the transport orders. That's actually just a setting, and how you can assign delivery note lines to specific packages. And one of the scenarios I want to show you is if I have a sales line with 2 pieces on it, how I can put every piece in a separate box. So let me quickly refresh that session. So for this scenario, I will use a non-booked transport order. So this one, by the way, one small feature that I haven't shown before, but the possibility to book a transport order. So basically submit it to, in this case, DHL. There's this action for it. But there are also other scenarios where that can be done automatically. So the scenario I have here is I have specified, and that's, as I said, it's a setup. I will show you where that setup is later on in this presentation. But in that case, when I create a transport order from a sales order, I will get the sales lines copied as delivery note lines, and it's using the quantities that are actually being shipped. So when you're working with unposted document, we're using the quantity to ship as the base of the quantities that are listed on this transport order. And of course, if you're working with posted documents, we're using the actual quantities that are being shipped. So here I have a sales line with 2 pieces that I'm about to ship, and I have 1 box. But again, in this scenario, I want to specify upfront that every box contains 1 item. So how do I do that? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add an additional box to this transport order. I'm going to add an additional packages of the same time. So I just say I want another one for this box. There I go. And now I have 1 assigned to this one. So that actually contains 2. And for that reason, when I now try to assign the pieces for this box, there is nothing available because all the pieces for this line are already in this box, are already assigned to this box. So what I have to do is I have to divide the content, and I will say, well, there's 1 piece in every box. So I will split it. And after splitting it, I now have a split it, and this one is still assigned to the box, but the new line is not. And that's the one I can now assign. So after this action, I now have one item in every box, and I have defined 2 boxes. So now I've clearly specified that each box contains 1 Berlin jello, because sorry, this is Dutch, but a chair. That's basically what I did. Of course, this is only necessary in scenarios where the same item is divided over multiple boxes, and either customs make it mandatory that you specify it. I would not recommend you to use this or implement it if there is no absolute need for you, because as you can see, especially when you do it manually, it's quite some work to link boxes and content to each other. But as I said, especially with shipments from the UK or to the UK, we see more often that this is a requirement. For typical shipments, carriers don't see to bother too much. If you just ship 4 boxes and you give the total weight of the entire shipment, then they are happy. They do not have to know what is in which box, obviously, which is of course the same if you ship privately some goods. They also don't know what is in that particular box. Maybe also good to mention that things like weights and that kind of stuff can all be set up on item level. So on the item, you can specify what the weight is of a certain item. And then if you are selling 3 or 4 items, you get the total weight on the sales line, which theoretically could also be influenced by item unit of measures. And we copy those to the delivery note lines, and that specify the total weight of the goods. And then boxes itself have a certain weight that you can also set up on the package type, which should give you a matching total weight of the shipment, which we then communicate towards the carrier. Then there is a more advanced scenario where you are working with item unit of measures. So let's say, for instance, your item unit of measure is a box that contains 6 items. It is possible to link the package type to the package type of the box, so that if you order 6 boxes on a sales order, we also will create 6 boxes for you on the transport order. There's a little setup involved there that I will show you now. So for instance, I have a idyn table. In pieces, it just has 1, but if I'm selling it in a box, there are 6 in it. And then by using this drill down, I can specify that for Transmart, I'm always using a box 02 for a box that I'm selling, so as a sales unit of measure on a sales order. So if I'm now ordering 2 boxes instead of 1 default box, 2 box 02s will be added to the transport order automatically, and you do not have to specify anymore which boxes you need. Next topic, which I will also demonstrate, is using service charges for the freight charges and the carrier select functionality that we have. And I will start with a letter, and I will also start with a demonstration here. So back to the transport order. As said before, I'm shipping something from within the Netherlands to another place in the Netherlands. And now I have a functionality which can make me help in deciding which carrier I'm going to use and what the price and the shipment date is for which it can be handled. So for that, on the transport order, but also on the sales order, for example, there is this carrier select feature. Often, it depends a bit on the provider, this is an additional service that that provider offers. And sometimes it also has additional cost with it, but it can be a nice feature to help you choose the cheapest way to get things from place A to B. And for instance, I know that one of the carriers is also looking into the economic footprint, so the carbon footprint, that can also help you in the decision process of which one you are going to choose. So as you can see from the result, if I'm sending it with Transmart and I'm using DHL parcel, it will cost me €8.83, and it's being picked up on the 6th of August, and it's going to be delivered on the the 8th of June, and it's going to be delivered on the 9th of June, and I'm using a Euro Plus service. As you can see, there can also be specifics for COD terms or Saturday deliveries and that kind of stuff. So it can really help you in deciding. You can also see that DHL Euro Plus has the same rate, but with, for instance, UPS, I pay a much higher rate. The ones that are red, by the way, are just not, they are not wrong. They are unmapped, or they are, for instance, not available. That can also be that there is no availability for that service on the chosen days. So I can now select the one I want, hit OK, and it will update my carrier, and it will also update the pickup date and the delivery dates as being provided or being by the carriers. And this one actually is a request through Transmart, which then set out more like quotations and get back actual rates. So what you see typically is that you get almost the same prices. So there's a kind of a, well, default pattern in it, of course, but it could also be that in peak times. So for instance, during the holiday season, that you can see that the prices go up or the pickup dates are a bit later than you're used to. So it's actually live data and live requests. Now back to the charging your freight costs to customers. Of course, it could be interesting now that you have a specific price to also invoice the customer for your freight costs. And that could be beneficially, but it also has a minor downside, because for instance, if you're doing it on a sales order, you first have to define how many boxes you are going to use to get an accurate price for your shipment. So just assuming that you will just have a one-time fee, then you can use service charges in Standard Business Central. And again, I will show you that later, because it's a standard feature, but not very common or heavily implemented. But we have added some stuff in there where you can also include the price that you got from the carrier selected, and also put up an upcharge to automatically add that as a service charge GL count line to your sales order. It goes a bit too far for this implementation to show you all the details, but I at least would like to show you where it sits inside the standard solution, and then what we have added on top of that. So let me quickly go to a customer there. So the mechanism I was talking about is called invoice discounts. And actually, of course, by default, it is used to give a customer a discount. And we're now talking about a service charge, which is the exact opposite of a discount. However, the standard customer invoice discounts definition table also has a service charge. So that could be, for instance, the shipping costs. And you can default those to being for instance, €20 for each order. But as I said, we added some additional options to use the calculated freight costs for that, and to use that as the basis for for what you're going to charge to your customer. So here in this setup, what you see is if the total sales order is below 100 euros, I will add a service charge of 20 euros regardless of the cost of my transport order. If my total order amount is between the 100 euro and below 200, I will use the actually calculated freight cost and an upcharge of 5%. So for instance, if it was 10 euro, the actual cost, I will add 5% to it. So that's an additional 2 euro. So the total charge added is 12 euros. And above 200 euros, I waive all service charges. So I'm not basing it on the calculated freight charge. There's no upcharge and there's no service charge at all. As you probably know, is when you release a sales order, the customer invoice discount is calculated, and then it's using the service charge account and adds an additional line to the sales order for the cost. So those freight costs that I'm talking about are only the selling part, the part that the customer has to pay, and it's the expected cost. It's not the actual cost of what you are actually shipping, because of course it could be that there are cancellations, or you have to ship it in 2 parts, so you have to ship 2 times, and then of course the actual costs are higher, but what you invoice to the customer remains the same. Yeah, back to the presentation, I guess. Quickly check if I didn't miss a part, but I don't think I did. So then the configuration. So we now talked about the core of the solution, but let's get over the setup a bit, and also I will describe which additional things you have to arrange to get started, to get rolling, to implement a new customer. And that has 4 parts. Of course, there is the additional setup, the initial setup. We have default packages that might help you a lot if you do not specify exactly, or you just want to have one default package added to each transport order automatically. That can also help in additional scenarios where I come back to. Then you have to map your the shipping agents and shipping agent services in Business Central with the different carriers in the providers platform. And optionally, you can also define carrier calendars in which you can arrange that on which times typically the carrier can come to your warehouse and pick up the goods, which time slots there are available, but also which days they are working in. So for instance, you can say that for Saturday deliveries, you have a specific service with a delivery on only Saturdays, and the other one can be on weekdays. But again, I will come back to that later. To prevent too much swapping, I'm using print screens only, so I will not go to the actual application. But every topic you can just search using either the role center that's directly available, or you can use the search bar to find the different pages. So the ShipIT setup, and again, there is also a wizard that can help you with the initial setup, but here are also the more advanced settings that you cannot change from the initial wizard. So I will talk you through the more advanced one. As I said earlier, and I also had a slide about it, you can choose to base your transport orders on unposted documents or on posted documents. It depends a bit on your process, what is preferable. For instance, if you have to announce your shipments prior to actually shipping them, it might be that you want to work with unposted documents. But if everything goes at once, and it might be easier and less work to base your transport order on posted documents. If you're working with posted documents, you can have the following automated actions. You can, when you post a document, you can do nothing and just create transport orders manually for your posted sales orders. You can also automatically create transport orders. And the latter two, creating and booking, is a beta feature that you first have to enable. And I will explain later why this is a beta feature, but it has to do with the manual process of creating packages. If you create them automatically and book them, there is no interface in between to update the actual packages that you're using for your shipments. So you would have to assume that it is already specified explicitly and correctly updated on the sales order itself. So that's why this one comes with some caution, and we made it a beta feature to see if that works. But of course, it's, well, for a customer perspective, it's very helpful if you post your sales order that automatically a transport order is created and then always also forwarded to the carrier, so that by the end of the booking, you also have your labels as a result and your track and trace information. This one can also be interesting, that base preferred date on. You cannot see the options, but you have the option posting date, and the other one is based on the preferred shipment date, I believe. And this can play a part also if you're working with posted documents or not. So typically, if you would have warehouse picking, for example, and you immediately start shipping your just recently picked order to the customer, so then on the same date, then you would base your transport order on the posting date. And that date is being used to determine when it's being picked up, and of course, then also when it's being shipped. With the other option, you're using more the planned date that is set on the order. So that could be, for instance, if you're picking today, but you're waiting with the shipping of the order till the customer asks for it, then you can use the planned shipment date instead. Always new transport order, that has to do with combinability. When you enabled it, even if you have on the same date a shipping under the same terms to the same customer, it will create a separate new transportation order. If disabled, the system automatically tries to combine everything that can be combined into one transportation order. So it will automatically, if you have, for one reason, two different sales orders created on the same date, the same day, to the same address, then it will only create one transport order, and as a result, you only will have one. Well, you only have to pay once, of course, to the carrier as well. Another one worth mentioning is this one, that automatically add one default package. You have seen that happening, so this ensures that when you create a new transport order, there's at least always one package on it. That also holds the content of that package automatically. Then of course you can still add additional packages later on in the process and really specify, but at least there's always one default package in place. And on the provider card, you can set up which one it is, but I actually come back to this one. As I also said before, that if you require it for custom purposes, you can add the delivery note lines, which are basically the sales lines or the transfer order lines. That is also added to the transport order so that you can see which goods you are shipping. This is the additional module I was talking about that enables the feature to link the packages and the package content to each other. So if you don't have it in your license, this one will gray out and it won't be possible to activate it. Allow all item types means that on a transport order also non-inventory items and service items can be added. But by default or without this option enabled, you will only be able to ship real items to transport orders. Then the default packages. So as I said, it is possible to specify on the ShipIT setup to automatically add one default package when a transport order is created. And then on the provider setup, you have to define which of the package types that are configured on the portal is the default one. And if you have this in place, then every transport order that is created will have automatically one box added to a new transport order. Then the next step that you have to do after completing the ShipIT setup, enabling the provider and getting the basic data, that is mapping your shipping agents in Business Central with the different carriers inside your solution. So I'm using print screens here, but if you enter shipping agent mappings from in the search bar, or you will find them also directly on the mappings in the Role Center page, you will get this list. You will see the Business Central shipping agent codes here. And then you can say DHL I will do with Transmart, and that matches with the carrier DHL parcel as it is configured in the Transmart portal. And of course, here you will only see the ones that you have selected or enabled in the Transmart portal, because typically what you will see is that on a customer basis, they will only give you, show you the carriers that you have enabled selected in that portal. So as you can see here, it is even possible to work with multiple providers simultaneously. But it might require you to set up a DHL US and a DHL Europe, for instance, so different shipping agents to specify that you're doing the DHL US with well, SendCloud or EasyPost, for instance, and then you can map them separately. And then for each mapped shipping agent, you can also map the services. So you have your shipping agent service, Europlus or Express, that you can then map with the booking profile, which is basically the name of a service within Transmart, DHA Parcel Europlus or DH Parcel Express. It could be that particular providers like Delivery Hub have additional mappings that you have to do. But in general, in a nutshell, it's just this. You have some weight conversions and you have the countries that you have to map, and that's it. Then the carrier calendars, that's the final thing. You have that as a generic part. So on the ShipIT setup, there's a tab for default setups where you can say my warehouse is open between 8 AM and 5 PM. And the same goes for my delivery windows to a customer. By default, this is what I will use. So if I now have a shipment on a certain date, it will ask the carrier to pick it up between 8 and 5 on the same date. But I could even work with more specific setups per carrier. And as I said, one of the scenarios here is a Saturday delivery, for instance. So here I have DHL Express that for some that has a pickup time between 9 and noon, and only in the weekdays. And the same goes for the delivery windows are a bit bigger, so a bit wider. But I can have, for the same carrier, I can have a Europlus, which has a broader pickup window for the goods from the warehouse. And here, for instance, I have a Saturday delivery that only operates in the weekends. With this setup, if I am now creating a transport order that is supposed to be picked up on Friday, it keeps into account whether or not the carrier or the shipping agent service operates in the weekends or not. And then it could be, of course, that the delivery date is updated to Monday or Tuesday instead of Saturday or Friday, because it's not being delivered in the weekends. So, of course, it's a little bit of more setup, but it gives you more accurate pickup and delivery dates for your transport orders. I think that completes the whole configuration part and the setup part, and also the main flow. One thing that I would like to bring forward is when you're doing implementation is communicate and think together with your customers where and when you are going to define the package content. And there are different variables that can give different recommendations on how to use it and when to use it. And be aware that when you're using sales orders, that is mainly if you specify your packages and package content on the sales orders, that is very helpful to get an accurate pricing or an accurate expectation of the cost. So it's helpful for your carrier select, and it can also help you to get the correct service charge in. But be aware that whatever has been entered there, as soon as you start deviating in what you're actually shipping versus what has been ordered, it becomes a bit more work, or you have to do it again on the transport order to really specify what's in it, especially when customs handling is in place. Then when you're actually shipping, you might have to do it all over again. What we typically see is that customers try to do it on the most easiest way as possible, but then the expectations when they're actually shipping and the accuracy of the goods that you are shipping, the actual shipping, that might give issues in the flow or in the process. So if there's not an absolute need to define them upfront on the transport order, then use on the sales order, then use your transport order before you ship to really define what's on it. Of course, that's typically only for cross borders. If you just have simple shipments, you can just continue. Be careful with that beta feature, because there's no way in between where you can respecify on the transport order what's actually in there. So then you would have to change your sales order. But then, of course, when you're doing 2 shipments, you have to do that all over again on the second delivery on that same sales order. If a sales order has packages defined and you will create a transport order from that sales order, we will always copy all the packages that are on the sales order, even if it's only one item being shipped. We don't know if it's a partial shipment. It's really hard to see if it was a cancellation or the rest will be shipped later. So we will always copy all, because we assume that it's easier to remove the unnecessary packages than to think again on the transport order which packages you should use. So by default we copy, but it's not because we expect a one-on-one between the sales order, what's being shipped, and the transportation order there. And also don't over design it, because a lot of carriers don't even really care if you say that the transport order is going to be 4 packages and you only offer them 2. They might check in the warehouses, they might do weight measures and whatever. So not all carriers do care as much. And if they don't care, then it could be really helpful to consider to use the beta feature, where you can immediately create and book the transport order while posting. And again, to reiterate, the Tasklet integration could be really helpful here, because it gives you the exact quantities and the content of the boxes and the boxes itself on the transport order based on what you have actually picked. So that's something worth to consider if you're working with warehouse solutions, for instance. I think that will bring me to the end of this presentation. So I will now open the floor for questions.
Yeah, we have thank you, Ruben, first and foremost. We have a few. Can you see them as well? I'm not sure. Can you see them?
No, my chat looks quite empty, sorry.
Oh, okay. We have a question from Frederik. You showed a transport order created from a warehouse shipment.
Yeah.
Currently, I have a customer using a warehouse shipment for multiple sales orders for different customers. Mm-hmm. One warehouse shipment corresponds to a truck going down a route. Can a transport order also contain multiple customers and destinations?
No, the answer is no. So what will happen now if you create a transport order manually for a warehouse shipment, it will create one for every document or basically every route. But for instance, we do support transfer orders. So if you have on the warehouse shipment a movement between location A and location B, that can be one big transport order. And then I also want to recall the setting with the combinability, so that create new transport order. So if there are multiple sources to the same address, then they can automatically be combined in one transport order. But for every route, and of course, look at it from the carrier's perspective. For them, it doesn't matter that it is one warehouse shipment. They have to drive different routes, and every route is one booking, one order for them. So every combination of shipping agent service, and from to address is one booking with the carrier and results in one transport order at least. But we do still update the underlying source document. So if the warehouse shipment, for instance, holds 4 sales orders to different addresses, the track and trace information for every unique booking will be on the unposted or posted document. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Ruben. On to the next one. We're short on time. For Martin, how do I apply an invoice fee to the customer based on the price that we found in the carrier select table?
Yeah.
So for example, a base amount of 10 euros plus 120% of the transport cost.
Yeah, so that's possible with that service charge that you then have to put in place. There's a lot more about it in our manuals, so maybe that's good to look back to. But basically, what happens, we can make it mandatory that because the service charge is calculated before you release a document, and then we can see if the service charge, the selected price that came back from the carrier select is then stored on the order. If it's there, then we can apply it as a service charge. And again, it is customer invoice discounts calculation, which happens automatically when you release a sales order, and then it's added automatically. It goes a little too far to demonstrate now, also because of the time, but check out the manual, it is possible.
Yeah, that because Martin is asking for an example inside BC as well, but we will follow up with you, Martin.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's clear enough in the documentation, and otherwise we'll follow up with that separately. Yeah.
Okay. Then the last one from Jesper. There are 3 apps available on the app stores: ShipIT for Transmart, and ShipIT on Delivery Hub.
Yeah.
Which one should I choose to use Delivery Hub in one company and Transmart in the other? Are the apps identical?
Yeah. So basically, what we have is we have one core app that is ShipIT 365. In there, all the 3 the providers are enabled. The other ones are just there to be able to be found on App Source. So if you look for SendCloud, you will find SendCloud. It will install that SendCloud as just a layer, but underneath it is using ShipIT. So if you want to use all, just install ShipIT and not the other 2, and you can enable both.
So in essence, the apps can be called identical, so it
yeah,
it wouldn't. Yeah. That was it in terms of questions.
Good.
And I think we're spot on with the timing.
Yeah, that's very good. Then maybe I just would like to welcome you all to the next session for Approve It, because I really think it's a good product. So if you have the time, please join us in the next session.
Yeah, you can still register on idyn.nl/news and then click through the links, and then I'll accept you on the session if you have the time. And I'll close this one for now. If anything comes to mind, let us know on sales@idyn.nl, and we'll be happy to help. And that being said, enjoy the rest of the afternoon and see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.